Hi there. This is 21 and 21, a rapid-fire Q&A show filmed at Presidio Bitcoin. I'm Haley Berkoe, and I ask people who stop by Presidio Bitcoin 21 questions in 21 minutes. Today, I'm chatting with Ella Hough, who has dedicated significant time to educating younger generations about Bitcoin. She leads projects at Generation Bitcoin and the Bitcoin Students Network, which she co-founded, all while pursuing a degree in cognitive science from Cornell University. Ella, welcome to Presidio Bitcoin.
Thank you so much for having me. You've built an incredible space.
Well, thank you. It's so great to have you here. I'm going to ask you 21 questions, and when I hit the clock, it's go time.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So, Ella, what brings you to Presidio Bitcoin today?
I was going to be in San Francisco, and I couldn't come without asking if I could stop by, and I'm so happy to be here.
So can you tell me a little bit about what you're working on right now?
Absolutely. So inside of the classroom, I am finishing up my thesis for my Bitcoin-focused study at Cornell. And then outside of the classroom, I am helping to lead the first study looking at Bitcoin adoption and financial freedom across 25 countries. And then, as mentioned, working on the Bitcoin Students Network, and have just transitioned over the Cornell Bitcoin Club to a new leadership team. So loosely supporting them during the transition as well.
I was going to ask you about that because you're graduating soon.
I know. Yeah, it's countdown's on.
Well, you're obviously doing a lot. So maybe can you elaborate on one of those things and tell me a little bit more about why this is important to Bitcoin's future?
Sure. Well, maybe I'll talk a bit about the study. So historically, there have been crypto adoption kind of index studies looking at crypto adoption around the world, but there hasn't ever been one focused on Bitcoin. And so supported by the Reynolds Foundation and Human Rights Foundations at the Cornell Brooks Tech Policy Institute, we are getting to do this study across 25 countries, doing both survey work, so 25,000 surveys, as well as interviews, so about 250 interviews to really understand, is Bitcoin being used as a tool for financial freedom, and if so, how? So
that's incredible.
Really, interesting to see, and we have all the data in, and so it's been really, I feel very lucky to be able to be a part of it.
How cool.
Yes.
So how did you become a Bitcoiner?
You know, back to the Human Rights Foundation, it was the Oslo Freedom Forum was really when it all clicked for me. I first learned about Bitcoin 4 years ago now, my senior year of high school, and it was just presented as this distributed ledger technology. Went over my head, and then I went to the Oslo Freedom Forum with my mom and really saw how Bitcoin, looks after humanity 24/7, 365, and realized I have to learn more and contribute to the space.
So maybe expanding onto that a little bit. So as we know, Bitcoin has a lot of different value propositions, and there's many different narratives that people tell about Bitcoin and get interested. What aspect do you think is most compelling to the younger generations?
I've been trying to think about this a lot for the TEDx talk I did recently, and how I presented it in that Bitcoin is time, and kind of really this tool to capture and preserve our time, and then in effect increasing our choice and agency over our lives. And so I think from what I've heard from feedback from that so far from students that were there was compelling, and really just this tool to help you pursue whatever it is that you feel called to do in your life.
Do you think that the even younger generations will find these same aspects of Bitcoin equally compelling, or do you think that the evolution of AI could impact how we explain Bitcoin in an even more enticing way?
That's interesting. Well, I know especially because there's been a lot of talk about, Bitcoin as like the natural currency that AI agents would use and transact with. But I do think it's important, the social contract element of Bitcoin, the social side of it, and really instilling in the values of permissionless, censorship resistant, not sovereign, decentralized, borderless. And so I hope that doesn't get lost as we talk to the younger generations.
And then it sounds like, too, like you're going to be passing on your work to somebody else.
Yeah, so I'll still be involved with the Students Network, but I have transitioned over the Cornell Bitcoin Club to 2 new leaders, and they've done an incredible job. One of them is actually going to work with the Human Rights Foundation this summer, and so they have really, latched on and grasped it.
That's great.
Yeah, so it's exciting.
So what are you currently most excited about in Bitcoin and why?
I think it has to be, my peers, the young people that are entering into this space because, Bitcoin was born in Gen Z specifically. And I think that younger generations have the most time ahead of them. And, so seeing people recently, a lot of the calls I've had, it's not just, how can I learn about Bitcoin, but how can I work and contribute in the space? And so I think that's really exciting, people that, want to get more involved.
Do you think there is anything that we can do to also get the younger generations to use Bitcoin as well? Or what can we do to help with that aspect?
So actually, I had a call earlier this week, and I can't take credit for this idea, but, a lot of young people don't have much disposable income. We're all in schools. We haven't really had a job yet. And so the idea this person presented was folds and how younger generations, you're already paying for your textbooks or whatever it might be and kind of passively stack sats. And so I think, unique ways like that we can brainstorm and think about would be, really beneficial for younger students out there.
Totally. Yeah. It's different when you have money to save or spend and how much you have.
Yeah. And then, of course, also, events at schools or how to really do more outreach to the students, because right now, Bitcoin's not really present in career fairs or many internships. And so, we don't have a marketing department, but the more kind of welcoming we can be, I think will also be beneficial.
Yeah, actually, do you want to tell me a little bit more about kind of the studies that you're doing in Bitcoin at school?
Yes.
And how you started it and how that's going to, carry on without you there?
For sure. So truly, I transferred to Cornell after my first year at NYU Shanghai, and I was coming back from the Oslo Freedom Forum, sitting on the plane, and I was just like, I have to learn more about Bitcoin. I have to study this. And so I went on to Cornell's website, saw they had an independent major option, began what turned into a 15-month process to, officially study Bitcoin. And I ended up doing it in a different program. But mine is really focused on actually linguistics and some game theory, Bitcoin as a language, kind of a new protocol for truth and disseminating truth. But I would hope, like Bradley Rettler at the University of Wyoming has the Bitcoin Research Institute starting next year, you can study Bitcoin from all different angles. And so I hope this is really just the first step or, the first iteration of what this might look like in a university, because it really is, diving into the unknown, asking questions. That's what you go to college to do.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and more schools adopt this and how people learn about Bitcoin. There's so many different ways.
Yeah, I saw it this morning. A school in the UK is like the first one to accept Bitcoin for tuition, or maybe just in the UK, but it's happening. So.
Oh, I did see that. I saw that too in Scotland, I think.
Maybe you might have that. I don't know. I was half
maybe
reading a little bit.
That was very cool. I guess let's kind of change the subject a little bit and maybe fast forward to a future and Bitcoin has failed, a grim future.
Yeah.
How do you think that Bitcoin has failed?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question to think about what could go wrong. Honestly, there's this poem I learned in 9th grade English that I have never left my head, like this one line, like when the center can't hold, things fall apart. I think it's a Yeats poem. And I really feel like it's the social side of things. And maybe this is a bias because I'm not super technical. But really instilling the values of why we're doing this. To give you a tangible example, we asked a question in the study, do you know a supply cap even exists on Bitcoin? And like 89% of people don't know there's a 21 million supply cap. And so I think there's a lot that we need to do to avoid apathy or a lack of conviction. So I think that's a compelling case for how failure could. I hope that's not the case, but perhaps there.
Yeah, I guess like kind of expanding on how we can mitigate that risk. Mm-hmm. What do you think that we could be doing?
Well, I think there's already a lot of really good education initiatives out there and people really telling what Bitcoin is to them. We have films like God Bless Bitcoin. We have podcasts from all around the world. I think everyone's going to come to Bitcoin in a different way, depending on where you grew up, what you're interested in. And so the more education like that we can do, and also the more we can show people how Bitcoin can be a tool to improve their life, and that will look differently for different people. So I think we're on the right track, but it's certainly a group effort.
Definitely. So what's your most controversial Bitcoin opinion?
Oh, goodness. Okay, I don't know if this is controversial, but it's come up recently, and it's that younger people are not a good return on investment for companies to kind of support. And that just shocks me a bit, because I feel like you have this whole group of people that are at the beginning of deciding where they're going to bank, what wallet situation they're going to use, where they're going to buy Bitcoin potentially. And so I really feel like a lot of the companies building in the space, this is your future customers and people that are going to stick around for a long time. And so that might be it, that we need to really prioritize the younger people.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's the future. Bitcoin's supposed to be for everyone, and there's just so much that we should do and think about.
Yeah, but just right now, the fact of the matter is young people are not going to, they don't have a lot of money to spend on certain things, but in the long term.
I guess, how do you think that universities can best support the Bitcoin open source ecosystem?
Oh, that's a good question. And it's a bit tricky because actually there's a school in Brazil that couple ones where they have professors that are working with organizations like Vintium, like really, doing good work with Bitcoin open source and developers. But at least in the US, blockchain has a really heavy focus, and Bitcoin is not. I've been told, no, you should focus on blockchain, not Bitcoin. And so I believe the change comes from the students up. Just, how Bitcoin came into the world. And so I think it's really the students that speak to their universities and kind of ask for what they're interested in, where the change comes, rather than trying to work with the universities top down.
Yeah, one thing that we're doing at Presidio Bitcoin is going to be a hackathon, and which I think you know about, and we really want students to be like the main hackers. Do you think the hackathons are a great way for students to get involved with Bitcoin and learn more about it?
I've heard some people say hackathons aren't as successful, but then I've also heard so many incredible success stories of hackathons. And so I think yes, because it's not just the project necessarily I think that you're working on, but it's the people that all come together and you realize, oh, I'm not the only person that's interested in this. And you leave with other friends, people to then go have these future conversations. And so I think it's incredible what you all are planning, and to do more. In person, let's work on this, think about this, talk about this. So I'm excited for your hackathon.
Yeah, hopefully it goes great. Hopefully we can scale it to other universities and other co-working spaces, because the community aspect is super important, and especially with younger generations when they're just trying to get out of college and figure out their next step.
Yes,
be really encouraging.
for sure. And kind of build up some proof of work, like, hey, I did that. Because I know it's a big thing. Companies want to see that you have had experience. And so this is an incredible way to support students with that.
Yeah, actually kind of related in terms of, I work at Spiral and being at Block, and Bitcoin open source work is a really great way to show your proof of work. It can be done in PRs, and you can actually show something. So I personally think that open source work is great for university students to get involved in, so they can build their resume at an earlier age. You don't have
to apply. You can just do it.
You can just do it. You don't have to apply, and then it's a unique way to show what you've done and build skill sets later on. Yeah,
I think for sure.
So what's a dream project that you would love to see other Bitcoiners build?
Oh, okay. This is really selfish. But it's something that's come up talking to the different clubs in the Students Network. And it's some type of Bitcoin treasury platform that makes it really easy in terms of kind of key management and also transitioning new leaders and how that whole process works. And so something like that, because we've brainstormed different kind of solutions that are out there, but we haven't quite found the right mix. And so something like that clubs can really start building up their Bitcoin treasury, teaching new members how this all works, would be really nice to have.
Could be a good hackathon project.
Yes, great hackathon project.
Anyone in San Francisco, listen in.
Yeah.
What's your perfect Sunday?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I haven't had one of these in a while, but it's raining for sure. I love rain. Probably wake up, have a coffee, read for a while. If you go for a walk or a run or something, and then I really like to host Sunday dinner for all of my friends. They're just all in a big group text, and you don't have to tell me you're coming, but I just say like, okay, dinner at 6:30, and people just come, and so I love that.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely end to the week.
Yes.
Do you think that institutional investment determines whether Bitcoin becomes the planet-preferred currency?
I think just historically, no. I mean, Bitcoin was around for 15 years before we had big institutions come in. To some extent, I think people are hesitant to act before kind of someone puts a stamp of approval on it. And so then in that case, maybe it spreads awareness or, comfort, I guess, of Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, I think no, and it's really within the people and, peer-to-peer.
What do you think the role of stablecoins should be?
So this is an interesting question now that I've seen a lot of our survey data back from the countries, because I think I've, at least from people, heard the story. I mean, I'm in charge of kind of all the interviews for this study. And so, you listen to people talk about how stablecoins, there really is that product market fit. But just on the awareness levels of stablecoins across the board, I mean, Bitcoin, it's like in the high 80s, most countries. Stablecoins, it's like in the 20s, 30% awareness. And so that's a kind of an interesting, I don't know if paradox is the right word, but I wasn't expecting to see that. So yeah, I think in the end, it's Bitcoin is the solution, but stablecoins are still kind of figuring it out, and I'm happy that it's really useful for some people, but also the data tells a little bit different story.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And you said you're serving a broad range of countries?
Yep. So there's 25 countries, all major continents, developed, developing countries. We had just a big scoring of every country and then narrowed it down to 25, and have done 1,000 person surveys in each country. And we just have started getting all the data back, or we have it all back now. But we looked at, what is the kind of awareness, ownership of Bitcoin, stablecoins, crypto, and then they also filtered out Ethereum. And Bitcoin is, top of the charts across the board, but Ethereum, stablecoins, it's all much lower.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess that gives you hope, but
yeah.
What gives you the most hope that's happening right now for Bitcoin's future?
I mean, I sound like a broken record, but I really think it is kind of all of the younger people across the world that are, coming into this space. Like next week, doing a talk with a group of women in Nigeria, and just it's so fun and grateful to be able to connect with all of these students all over that. Now, if you look at kind of the statistics, people, especially Gen Z, feel less optimistic, less hopeful. They don't want to set up goals, all tied to fear about kind of economic uncertainty. And I just feel like for them, Bitcoin is this tool that you don't need to think about the future with fear or apprehension. You can go really have those big dreams and pursue them. And so kind of gives me a lot of hope, all the doors that I see Bitcoin will open up for people all over the world.
Do you think that people are learning about Bitcoin the most on social media, or like what kind of platforms is TikTok and Instagram playing a critical role?
Actually, I think it's YouTube. So we did ask this question as well in the surveys and kind of the interviews. It's a lot of YouTube, a lot of podcasts. I mean, if you're on, I think the right algorithms, Bitcoin, Twitter, none of my close friends really have Twitter. They just hear about it. I think you hear about it from your community and people. And maybe that's in a way more sustainable because you can kind of hear it from a trusted source and have those repeated occurrences. So word of mouth, I would also say, is popular.
Totally. Yeah. Who are some of your favorite Bitcoiners in the space right now?
Oh my gosh, that's too hard. But maybe I'll say some that I'm recently especially grateful for. So Sarah Krebs, who I work on the study with, Troy Cross, Parker Lewis, Eric Kursman, Drew, Bansal. They've all, various things recently, been grateful to them. And my mom, of course, I can't not say her.
What advice would you give to students who are either thinking about jumping into the Bitcoin space or maybe brand new to it?
So I would say trust yourself. I know it seems kind of vague, but the future is inherently uncertain. There's a lot of information out there. And so I think if you just feel empowered in yourself to navigate uncertainty, receive new information, kind of know that you might have to question some assumptions, but like from so long, we have outsourced our trust into others, other systems, other ways of telling us what to think, like what curriculum to follow. And I really think people have more power than they give themselves credit for. So I probably leave them with that.
That's great advice. Well, you're doing great on time.
Oh,
wow, perfect. One last question with 35 seconds left.
Okay.
If you could leave our listeners with just like a last thought about Bitcoin, what would it be?
Okay, I have 27 seconds. Maybe the title, I titled the talk, In Yourself You Trust. I know I just said that, but I really feel like we have to trust ourselves to navigate change and uncertainty. I'll end there.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for stopping by. Where can our listeners find more about you? Where should they go to learn?
Twitter, it's just 21mm for the 21st. But also, that's the best spot. I have a website, but just go to Twitter.
Go to Twitter.
Yeah, but no, thank you so much for having me. It's such an incredible space you have here.
Thank you. Well, you're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
Yes, it was great to have you.
Thank you so much, Haley.
Yeah, bye.